Try pulling one over on the federal government when you're filing your taxes. On like the smallest denomination, the smallest degree or percentage or decimal point. And you'll get your ass thrown in prison. Why? Try starting a illegitimate business or claiming an illegitimate benefit. You'll get your ass thrown in prison. Why? Try getting 2 driver's licenses in 2 different states. You'll get your ass thrown in prison. Why? Try buying crypto, selling it in an exchange that's end-to-end encrypted, and then telling the government that didn't happen. Get your ass thrown in prison. Why? Because the government already has these databases, because they already know what you're doing on your phone. All these things are like spy tech anyway. They're designed and operated with backdoor systems created by our deep state. They not only know how many illegals there are here, they know every single motion and activity they ever take, they know every step they ever take, they know every little search they've ever done. In the incognito tab, they know every place they go for tacos. They already have all the information. They have all your information. They track your information every single day. Sparkle Snoopman rules that this is somehow a violation of people's privacy that threatens the vote. Let's go ahead and look at the actual ruling, shall we? Do we have the text of the ruling? Here, does it say here? No, this is just Sparkle Snoopman.
Some say, phew! Some
she serves under James Boasberg. Perfect. Well, anyway, this is all here. Yeah.
3.
My goodness gracious. I mean, you know this is a liberal woman by... You know this is like an insufferable libtard by how long this ruling is. For heaven's sakes. I mean, for heaven's sakes. Goodness gracious. Page 75?
Well, that would be a quartet.
So,
12-man band.
I mean, I don't even know where to begin here, but I'll take a quote.
Shakalaka.
Take a quote from where is CNN?
We're getting seismic activity.
All in all, the federal government has knowingly trampled on the privacy rights of American citizens in a manner that threatens the sacred right to vote. So let's just take that sentence from this ruling, from Sparkle. Sparkle.
Is that a quake? Or
so what this does is it simply checks to see if you're an illegal voting in an American election, which of course is illegal action. It's unlawful. The government checking your social security number against the voter rolls. The government checks your social security number against every transaction. If you're buying a house, if you're applying for a line of credit, if you're trying to get into the White House, you got to give them your social security number. If you're going to the DMV, the government checks your social security number probably 50 times a day in different transactions or capacities. If you're applying for welfare, if you're applying for a loan, if you're buying a large item, if you're buying a car, they need a background check on something. If your employer wants to run a background check, if you do a drug test, your social security number is checked against databases constantly by our federal government. But it's only this action that tramples those rights, none of those other ones. And then in a manner that threatens the sacred right to vote. Wait a second. Nobody here is denying any American, born right-wise, born in this country that has a legitimate social security number. Nobody is denying them the right to vote. It's taking the right to vote.
Maine's rural hospitals are struggling, but Senator Susan Collins came to the rescue, delivering critical federal funding for upgraded facilities and life-saving diagnostic equipment. Susan Collins does her job, and our hospitals benefited. Call and thank her for delivering for Maine.
In the Western Hemisphere, says if you cannot impeach the judges and then imprison the judges, then they will simply protect the corrupt systems that put them in office. The judges will form a coalition and will never allow any reforms to take place or save your country. Napoleon says no man is a criminal or breaks any law who saves his nation. The remedy to this must be, I think, step 1, punishing Sparkle Snoopman, stripping her of her robes and her gowns, impeaching her. That would take some balls in Congress, but it can be done. Sending a message there, and then getting rid entirely of the federal judiciary in Washington, D.C. You have to get rid of that court system. There shouldn't be a D.C. court. The reason why they brought every January 6th case there, the reason why they brought every Trump case there, is that D.C. court is the entire diseased temple is set up in order to protect the deep state and to protect entrenched establishment power. It is where you go to get a slam dunk. It is the bank for the deep state. And so it's where they bring every single case, like these, that they want. And they have jurisdiction because the federal government's there, and they want to be able to effectively usurp the will of the American people. And it should enrage you, it enrages me. The ruling is nonsensical, and they only care about checking of a social security database when it comes to determining who's voting in our election. Look at how hard they're protecting this. Look at how rabidly they're protecting this. We have Senator Tommy Tuberville here, ladies and gentlemen. So, final thought. They're not fighting that. You could use the same argument for FISA. You could use the same argument for probably dozens of Fourth Amendment violations, Third Amendment violations, daily, that happen against your social security number and checks against government databases that spy on you. They're only doing this because President Trump wants to clean up the voter rolls. It tells you everything. How do you know something's infected? Press on it. It hurts. Ow! The reaction. Someone sets your house on fire. You only have a minute to get out alive. What are you going to do? You're going to naturally run. You're going to naturally run to grab the priceless heirloom. Your child sleeping in their bed. Whatever is like the most precious and the most important for you, you're going to, in a panic, you're going to sprint there and like rabidly protect it. That's what this is. That's what this is. And you can see every single step of the way the Democrats have rabidly protected the operation of bringing 100 million criminal aliens into this country and then keeping them here. This has been the only goal of this federal bench in D.C. is to overrule the president, to keep as many criminal aliens here and voting and on welfare as they possibly can. That's every single ruling. So ask yourself why. How much of a sacred cow is that to Sparkle? It is. That's it. That's the ballgame. If we get our mass deportations, if we get our country back, if we get control of immigration, then they have no other way to collapse the West. They're losing cultural power, they've lost political power, they've lost financial power, they've lost institutional power. This is it. This is the final, this is the Hail Mary for them. And so they're protecting it with everything that they got. Sparkle to do it. Let me bring on a man who sparkles every single time he's on the show. Hope he doesn't drop off because I said that. Because we love Senator Tommy Tuberville. He's going to be the next governor of the great state of Alabama. I'm sure he has some thoughts on all of this. Senator Tommy Tuberville joining us live right now. Senator, welcome back to the program. An exciting day. We learned today that we no longer live in the United States of America. We live under the dictatorship of Sparkle Snoopman, who without a single vote cast or a single shot fired has totally overtaken the entire whole of our federal government and executive branch with her rulings. And so, quite a time, quite an exciting time.
You're exactly right, Benny. Since I've been here for 6 years in the Senate, it's easy to tell that we're not relevant anymore, Congress or the House. Now we can spend some money, we can do those kind of things, but the group that runs this country is these leftist judiciary people that I don't know how they got on the bench. Well, actually, I do know how they got on the bench.
New Palmer's Tahitian Vanilla Hair Care. Intense hydration with an irresistible vanilla scent.
The executive branch as hard as they can, and you're right on the money. They want to destroy this country by the way of not changing any laws, just bringing in people that are not citizens and letting them vote. And we see it every day. Joe Biden and Barack Obama did just tons of damage to this country. President Trump's trying to straighten it out, but in 50 years we couldn't straighten this out. We have to have some help from the judiciary. They cannot continue to protect these people every which way they're trying to do it, but they're just trying to run out the clock. And it's just unfortunate. The American people across the country have to wake up. They have to wake up this November. They have to go out and vote. They have to go out and vote the right way, because we know illegals are going to vote. And it's just unfortunate we're in this situation. But I don't know how we stop it. President Trump's trying, but he takes 2 steps forward and 1 step back. And it's just, I hated to see it for this country. My dad died for this country, and he has his name on the World War II memorial down by the reflection pool. And I can imagine if he were here today, what he would be thinking about what's going on here, not just in Washington, D.C., but all across the country.
I think you bring up an absolutely great point, and I think this is really the ultimate question that's being raised in the West, which is, do we live in a republic or a democracy or anything? Because we keep demanding a right to speak out against third world invasions of our lands, and nobody listens to us, no matter how many times we put in office people that say they're going to reverse this trend. We keep getting it. And so it's like an agenda that has been decided, and it's going to happen no matter what. And everything is just a facsimile of the other side and the same side, and so we always get the same thing. Nothing ever happens. Your father didn't die, and millions of young patriotic men that decimated, of course, the whole of Europe and decimated Western civilization. They died in order to keep the barbarians from coming into their homes and their homelands and raping and pillaging their way through their homelands, but now they've been invited through the front door. And you're exactly right. I mean, every single time a World War II veteran gets a camera in front of them, they say, we didn't fight for this. We didn't fight for our homelands to become like this, to be ruled over by a Sparkle Snookman from Trinidad and Tobago. I mean, am I right? Like, your father would be repulsed.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. And it just goes back to just opening the borders, but taking advantage of what Barack Obama did back there in the Middle Eastern wars, where he just brought in just thousands and thousands of people from either Africa or the Middle East. Minneapolis. They've taken control there. And then Joe Biden turned around, and that was obviously Barack Obama's 3rd term, and they just opened the floodgates, and Secretary Mayorkas of Homeland Security lied to us every day about, the border's closed. And it's all a plan of theirs. And we're not stepping up here now. It's hard to do any more than what President Trump are doing now. They've got it closed down. Talking to the border, they're deporting people. The problem now is we've got to find some way to keep these people from electing, from school boards all the way up to presidents of the United States, and even going back to the judges and things that are voted on the local level. We have a huge problem, and again, tomorrow President Trump will come over, and I know he'll have a game plan. He's going to talk to 52 senators with Mitch McConnell out. He's not able to come over. So 52 senators. Now, I know President Trump will have a plan, but I think tomorrow will be our last-ditch effort to get the Save America Act passed. And I want to hear from the ones that's voting against it. Why are you voting against the 49 other people in the Republican Party? Why are you voting against 80 to 90% of the people across the country, Democrat and Republican, that want voter ID and being a citizen of this country to vote? Why are we against that? Because if that is the one thing, if we don't pass, 20 to 25 states already are crooked as hell. I mean, they're going to stack the deck. Look at California. They're not going to allow Republicans to win. And if we continue down this path, it will be over as we know it. We will lose our country as we know it.
A couple of follow-ups there. One, would you be in favor of a policy, maybe a constitutional amendment, it'd probably have to be, that says you have to be an American and you have to be born in America to serve as a judge and to rule over us, and to judge over us? I think it's like Sparkle Snoopin just got here like last year, and then suddenly she's like vacating the will of 77 million Americans, and that seems wrong. It seems immoral, actually, to me. It seems like the opposite. We just read the Declaration of Independence. It's like the opposite of what anyone intended to have happen, and they put rules on the president, actually, in order to ensure that we weren't ruled by a foreigner, but we are being ruled by foreigners, whether it's Ilhan Omar or Sparkle Snoopin.
Well, it shows you how things we've got turned around. The President of the United States has been an natural-born citizen of this country, but they have to take orders from these people from third world countries that are coming in being elected to the judiciary. It makes no sense whatsoever. Again, we've lost our mind. And, you know, we've got so many people now in this country that are not Americans that get to make those decisions, unfortunately, because they have the right. They don't have the right, but they are voting. And so it's putting us in harm's way. There's no other way to put it. And again, the Save America Act is the most important piece of legislation since I've been here for 6 years. And again, it's only because, it's not like 10, 15 years ago, only because you've had communist socialist presidents like Biden and Obama allow people to come here to vote. And there has to be some rules about that. And nobody up here, when there's not a majority up here that can put an answer to that. I've got an answer to it. Vote the Save America Act. But again, we've got 49 votes. We need 60. Democrats aren't going to vote for it. They've got the ball in their court. They're going to keep it away from us if President Trump's out. And they're going to run this country underground as fast as they possibly can because they love power.
So what would be the Hail Mary here? What would be some type of like grand bargain with Murkowski or Collins? I think that it sounded like during the procedural votes that you were able to maybe like scrape by 50. So then if you got rid of the filibuster, you could potentially pass it. You could attach it right to one of these must-pass bills, FISA or whatever.
Yeah, but I think at the end of the day, what's going to have to happen is, we used to debate up here. We used to go on the floor and spend hours and hours of debating. Mike Lee he's got the answer to it. People don't want to stay up here that long and debate. They just go to the floor, start a debate on the Save America Act, and debate for weeks and weeks at a time. To wait till the Democrats aren't here, and then you vote it in. Bottom line, that's the talking filibuster. And they used to do that all the time, Benny, but this is not a working Senate anymore. We work 3 days a week, and we go home. And people take these lavish coattails and go all over the world and spend a lot of money. It's not about doing what's right for our country anymore. And you know, we've got a lot of good people up here. Don't get me wrong. But there has to be, we don't play to win. We just play up here to survive. And that's got us in so much trouble. Surviving means, hey, maybe we can keep the majority, maybe we can keep the floor, have committee chairman, but what good does that do us? We've got to be able to pass different type of legislation, stronger legislation, because how crazy these people have gotten on the left. This is not your mother and father's 1960 Democrat Party. It's gone. There's no more Democrats, and they've all gone as far left. And even the ones that say they're Democrats, they're just followers anyway. They're only harmful when they vote with the left.
None of these rulings from Sparkle would matter if we had the Save America Act, because if that was actually the law of the land,
right,
then they'd be helpless in doing this. I mean, it does seem obscene that you can't check the ruling. We just read the ruling. So wait a second, the government does illegal spying on us constantly, every second of the day. But checking the voter rolls to see if there's a bunch of illegals on there with social security numbers that the government gives you and maintains, that's a bridge too far? I mean, the ruling's absurd, Senator. What do you make of it?
Oh, yeah. Well, you hit it right on the nose there. But maybe the problem is, my people back in Alabama, there's every day I'll hear some coach, why should I vote? We only had 20% of the people vote in the primary this year in Alabama, a very red state. But they all say, why should I vote when it comes to the general election? Because when I vote, you're going to have 4 or 5 people that are non-citizens that are going to vote. We don't stand up for the people that pay the taxes in this country, that do things right, that believe in this country and the Constitution. And it's going to get far less people because it's now starting to move into the South. The South is our last stand because we've lost all the Northeast cities, all the blue cities, the blue mayors, the blue governors. People have absolutely lost their mind all the way out in California, the Northwest, Tennessee, Mississippi, Georgia, Alabama, Florida, the very southern states. We're going to fight back, and we're going to fight to the end. But we got to have something to fight with because we're getting overrun by this nonsense of doing away with all the rights of the American people and giving the rights to the illegals.
How, as governor of Alabama, will you fix this for the state of Alabama? How will you ensure that you can have the SAVE Act in Alabama, at least? Every Republican state could enact the SAVE Act. The Attorney General of the state of Florida is joining us in just a minute. I mean, we have the SAVE Act on steroids in this state.
And we do the same thing in Alabama. I'm not big on voting machines, but again, when you look at this, number one, I think a big push, instead of spending hundreds of millions of dollars on these senators or congressmen that at the end of the day are not going to vote Republican, that are going to vote on the other side, let's quit spending money on these people and spend money on entertaining the fact that the people across the country, if you believe in the Constitution, you got to go vote. We got to get people out to vote. We are losing more and more people because they don't think their vote counts. And so in our state, we're going to work very hard. We've cleaned up our voting rolls. We've got the dead people off. We make sure that you're legal. You have to have a voter ID in the state of Alabama. And that's the reason that we feel good about our elections. Florida's the same way. Tennessee's the same way. But again, you get to 20 or 25 of the states that could care less about our Constitution. Anybody can vote, and they can vote as many times they want. They can mail in ballots. It's out of control.
Would you be fighting to impeach the judge if a judge ruled like this in Alabama?
Oh, 100%. I mean, we've got judges in the state that are Democrats that actually go by the law. Most of them. Now, I'll probably still have a little bit different feel because when I get to be governor of the state of Alabama, they're going to come after me because I am going to be straight up constitutionalist. We're going to go by the rule of law. And if we have judges that are going to go against the Constitution, we're going to go after them. And you got to have a good attorney general. You got to fight back from day one. You got to put pressure back on them. You can't give in to them. And that's the reason I just love President Trump. I mean, they'll go after him. He doesn't care. They tell him he can't build that banquet hall over there. Well, they're still working on it. And you cannot listen to these people that hate this country. And again, we're going to be fighting in the streets if we don't get some kind of control over the situation at this point. If it continues to get out of hand, in the South, in Florida, Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, Mississippi, we're not going to put up with that nonsense. And the great Americans are going to fight back.
Last question here very quickly. I mean, is that your advice to Trump? Just bulldoze this and just not care? Just continue?
We voted him as the chief executive of this country, almost 80 million people. Go get it done because they're not going to listen. They're going to slow you down at every turn. He's only got 2.5 years left. And, he's trying to do what's right to make sure that we will win the House. I'm very scared about the Senate. But at the end of the day, his last 2 years, they're going to go after him from the left. But That's the reason people love him. He is going to do what makes America great again. He's going to be American first all the way.
It's amazing how Mitch McConnell destroyed your guys' capacity to win the Senate. You guys would win 5 seats. Republicans would win 5 seats in the Senate if Mitch McConnell had been on board with the Save America Act and hadn't led a little revolt because of his petty bitterness against Donald Trump.
Well, those few, I'll tell you, Benny, they believe, in Mitch McConnell's one, they believe in the tradition of the Senate. This is the way we've done it. But we haven't done it that way forever. Plus, this is not the same country we had just 10, 15 years ago. Our country has changed. These illegals are going to change it, no matter whether you like it or not. So we have got to put protections up. That's our job. That's our job as lawmakers up here, to protect this country. And we're not doing it because of a so-called tradition. Tradition's out the gate. We have to protect the people and citizens of this country. If we don't, we're going to lose it. You know that. We're going to lose it. It might be 2 years, might be 5 years, might be 10 years, but they're just sitting back waiting to take this country over. And when they do, we'll never get it back.
We're thankful for you, Coach. We're thankful for you fighting constantly for this nation, for going and serving in what I believe to be a much higher and more important office, if I may be so bold, because state leadership matters so much, and there's so much more you can do on a state level and even a local level and a municipal level to properly affect the betterment of your community and where you live. And so, running for governor of Alabama, you're looking at him right here, the next governor of the great state of Alabama, Tommy Tuberville. Go follow the coach right now. He's got hundreds of thousands of followers on social media. Thank you, Coach.
Thank you, Benny. God bless.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Attorney General of the state of Florida, James Uthmeyer, is locked and loaded and ready to go. We're just going to go right over to him right now. Welcome, James, to the show. Mr. Attorney General, thank you so much for being on the program. I'm very glad that I live in Florida and not under the dictatorial rule of Sparkle Snookman.
Yeah, Benny, thank you for calling into question these judicial abuses. We see it across the country. It's wrong. And I'll remind people at home, Alexander Hamilton wrote in the Federalist Papers, the power, the authority of judges are really only as good as the deference given to their orders by the other branches and the people. When judges abuse their power, when they exceed their authority, we should reject those opinions. And I'm glad to hear you talk about impeachment, removing these judges. We don't see enough of it. Here in Florida, we have judges that let pedophiles go free. They, rape and murder others, and then they're still on the bench. We've got to start impeaching these judges and making them live up to their oath.
I live in Tampa, and not long after I moved here, there was a district attorney. It was a George Soros appointed district attorney, and your boss, Ron DeSantis, ripped that guy the hell out of office and then destroyed his career and dragged him publicly for defying Florida law. And it seems like that's precisely the remedy that needs to happen right now with the federal judiciary. What do you think?
I totally agree. People take an oath to uphold and defend the Constitution, the rule of law. When they don't want to do that, they should get a new job. The role of a judge is not to push radical politics and ideologies. The role of a judge is to enforce the law. Same with our prosecutors. They're supposed to put criminals away, prosecute, bring a case, do your job. If you don't want to do that here in Florida, we'll hand you a brown paper box and we'll find you a new job.
Yeah, or maybe a brown paper bag to put over your head, which would be great for Sparkle. Can you talk me through this? Because we've talked offline, and you've been Trump's lawyer. You've worked at the highest levels of law and in the judicial system and the jurisprudence that you've practiced. And you're young, right? So it's like people maybe don't understand this, but you have the highest possible legal pedigree. And so you know these things a lot better than I do, right? I have the grok version of everything. But I can't quite square how the founders would say our chief executive must be a natural-born, native-born American citizen and can't be anything else. And yet that man has to live under the tyranny of a bunch of foreigners in black robes that came here yesterday off a boat from Trinidad and Tobago and that they actually can rule over that native-born, natural-born American who's got 80 million votes. I can't square it, Mr. Attorney General. Can you help me understand this?
I tell you, it certainly seems wrong here. You see it in the judiciary, you see it, members of Congress, crying foul about our country, embarrassed about what we stand for, trying to thwart the efforts of our commander-in-chief. They ought to just go back where they came from. It's wrong, it needs to be stopped. I would love to see our legislative bodies in D.C. as well as at the state level step up, fight back, and do the right thing.
What would that look like on a state level? I mean, I suppose you could pass, not from the federal bench, but I guess you could pass that you have to be like in the country for a couple of years before you start ruling over us. In what way is this not defined as rule of how is this not defined as like colonialism, like being colonized? Rule by some...
State by state level, I mean, you're not going to be able to impose requirements that go beyond constitutions, so states may have to look at amending constitutions, but it most certainly seems fundamentally wrong. And where you have judges, again, not following the law, exceeding their authority, telling the president, the commander-in-chief, he doesn't have the authority to take terrorists, to remove them from our country. These orders are wrong. They do not need to be followed, and we need people who are willing to fight back. People might be held in contempt. There might be, some political tools at our disposal to cut salaries, turn off the lights. The founders created the separation of powers, so our congressional bodies controlled the purse. They can hold the judges accountable through many other ways. Unfortunately, that just hasn't happened in modern history.
What would be your advice? You've advised the president, obviously, on a number of personal and legal issues. What would be your advice to Donald Trump right here when it comes to this sparkle ruling?
Well, my advice, number one, would be let's get Congress together and let's think about how to really inflict some pain on the judiciary that doesn't follow the law. Let's look at salaries. Let's look at resources. Let's look at office space. Let's figure out how we can inflict some blows, and where there are rulings that are not based on legal authority, certainly take every action to disregard them, appeal them, and fight them.
Do you believe that the federal judiciary should exist? And this seems to be like the punishment court, the bank court for the deep state, and every single January 6th op was brought in that federal judiciary. Should D.C., given the fact that it's not a state, should they even have a federal judiciary branch there?
Well, I think the federal judiciary is pretty defined in the Constitution. We certainly can limit the number of judges.
The D.C. district is all I'm asking, sorry.
Authority. I think the D.C. district...
The D.C. Circuit, sorry for my inaccurate language. The D.C. Circuit Court itself.
I don't think it should exist. I think we need to rein the number of courts in, the number of judges in. We've got to have a Supreme Court justice, certainly, but the left has been trying to pack and find ways to create these venues where they want to bring all the cases to thwart what the president's doing. They venue shop up and down the country, and they find these single-judge venues out in California where somebody wants to create an injunction that binds the entire country. This is wrong, and it shouldn't be tolerated. The judiciary has become essentially the most powerful branch in our country, and it's our leaders and the people that have allowed that to happen. And it's why here in Florida, we're fighting back. We're calling for impeachments of judges. We're going to look at ways to bring the judiciary back into the role and authority that the founders wanted.
So you're doing that in an issue that I think is a big niche, but something that is critically important to our communities. You just made a big announcement on the 7.0 products. This is a big-time hazard. It's like legal drugs that can be sold at gas stations. I think, didn't you just have a judge come over the top and say, no, we have to legalize the drugs for the teenagers at gas stations? Can you explain this?
Yeah, we just imposed a new emergency rule. It expands and goes further than one we issued about a year ago. You've got now this essentially gas station morphine. There's a plant from Asia called Kratom. These businesses will extract 7-OH, which naturally metabolizes in very, very small quantities. They will make it highly concentrated and create essentially synthetic chemical morphine It acts like an opiate. It's over 13 times more powerful than morphine, and you can find it in gas stations. People are making so much money off of it that it's proliferated all over the state. So we've shut that down. It's now illegal to sell it as they've tried to blend it with other chemical components and get around our rules. We've stepped in to broaden the prohibition, increase penalties, and we will hold people accountable. It's been great. Other states have reached out. We've got 6, 7 other states now doing the same thing. We've got to protect our kids. We can't let people choose profit over public safety. I don't think the government should get in the way of business activities unless it's an emergency. And here, where kids think they're taking some herbal supplement and end up taking something more powerful than morphine, we've got to step up and fight back.
Our studio technician and producer is talking about the kratom bars and how they like turn people into zombie hordes, like just wandering around the gas stations in the Tampa, St. Pete area where we live, and I know a place that you care about a lot. How awful it was. So, like, really happy really glad that you're cracking down. That's insane. The loopholes that they find. Anything to keep us from looking like California, please, Mr. Attorney General.
And they'll always try to find an angle. A lot of these new vape products are not regulated. They're coming from China. Obviously, we've seen the dangers of fentanyl coming from China. It's a new warfare. They want to take out our young next generations. We're not going to be able to compete with our enemies if everybody's walking around high like a zombie. So I think as leaders, we've got to step up and make sure we're shutting down people that just want to make too much money at the expense of our kids. We're doing that with drugs. We're doing it with social media applications. We're doing it where AI is unnecessarily exposing young people to harm, advising them how to kill themselves, how to commit murder, school shootings. It's pretty horrific, some of what we've seen. And, look, we're not against technology. We want to compete with the rest of the world. We don't stifle innovation in Florida. But where these companies are better at managing and processing data than anybody in the world, they certainly can step in and create some parameters to protect our little ones.
So, I wouldn't be an interview on my program if I didn't ask some question where you get to dunk on California. The California elections have been egregious and humiliating and have enraged everyone. And a thorough look at it effectively is them using their homeless crisis and their criminal alien crisis in order to just rig elections. It's like obvious, it's plain, everybody can see it. First off, what is the remedy there? Why does it work so well in Florida? Florida's the #1 landing spot for the vast majority of California refugees, right? Like every rich person that used to live in California now lives in Florida, including the guy who runs Starbucks and the people who run Google, right?
Hey, we need to talk. When you're driving, we're watching. We see you glance at your phone or touch up your makeup. You're always sad.
Pay attention.
So why don't you? We appreciate you driving us everywhere, but we get worried sometimes. Our safety depends on you. Depends on you. So think about us in the backseat. Think about us. And drop the distraction. Please, be safe when you're driving. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Florida, we were the laughing stock of the world in 2000 with election issues. Our leaders took it seriously. The SAVE Act was largely Florida law. We went above and beyond this last session with heightened security measures. We created the first election fraud police force in the country. We go out and arrest people when they vote more than once or where they're engaged in ballot harvesting and other election fraud crimes. We prosecuted over 60 cases. We put people behind bars if they engage in election fraud because it is that important. When it comes to other things in Florida, we push common sense. We want to make it the safest state in the country. We're at record crime lows, and it's not a surprise. My office had 50% more statewide prosecutions year over year this past year. We're prosecuting and convicting more people in history, and our crime rate keeps going down. I mentioned fentanyl. That was the greatest danger facing the country on a public safety front when I took office. In just a year and a half, thanks to President Trump shutting down the border and our law enforcement officers taking down bad guys and prosecuting them for long sentences, fentanyl cases are down over 70% in just a year and a half. Fentanyl deaths down almost 50%. Double-digit crime decreases across the state of Florida. This isn't partisan. It's not Republican. It shouldn't be anyway. It's common sense, and I think everybody wants it, and that's why you see people voting with their feet and coming down here to Florida. I just ask they do not turn us into the states from which they're fleeing, or they're going to have a problem with it.
Last very quick follow-up question to that answer, which is I was just in Texas, emceeing the Texas State Republican Convention, and I got to speak with their governor, I got to speak with their attorney general, and a bunch of other, and they were bragging to me, and it made me angry, and I was bitter, and I wanted to ask you about this. They're like bragging to me about their new law, SB4, that allows them to deport their own illegals back home. They don't have to wait for the federal government. And this is now law, they won their appeal, and so why can't we have that? Like, aren't we better than Texas? Like, can't we, why do they get to have nice things and we can't have nice things?
Yeah, we've passed a lot of laws that are currently enjoined. Again, talking about these judges that abuse their power. We created our own state criminal violation for being in the state illegally. It has been enjoined. It's up on appeal. I'll fight it all the way up to the Supreme Court. Most of the judges in our country have said that when it comes to immigration enforcement, states are completely preempted. It is a federal prerogative. I think this is wrong. If you've got a federal government like the VID administration that wants to derelict its duty, wants to open the border, doesn't want to enforce laws that are very validly on the books, the state must have the right to protect itself, to protect its borders and its own sovereignty. So we'll keep pushing. Look, we compete with Texas every day. I always joke, their AG's office lately has been doing everything we do a week later. But we love those guys. We love working with them. It's a friendly rivalry, and we're going to keep pushing the envelope everywhere we can.
Thank you. Again, the Attorney General of Texas is Ken Paxton, you know him well on this program. The Attorney General of Florida, you must know well as well, James Boothmeyer, who I guess gets his homework copied by Ken Paxton. Didn't know that, Mr. Attorney General.
No, they beat us sometimes. I got to be fair. No, he's been a strong fighter. He's doing a good job.
We'll needle him next time he's on the show. Please follow the Attorney General. He has 70,000 followers here on his official account. Get in there and hey man, move to Florida. This is the leadership we got here in the state. You want to feel rock solid. This is the leadership that Disney surrendered to. Okay, you understand how good we have it here? Disney surrendered to this guy. Okay, and is now the happiest place on earth. Like because all the predators are out of the parks. So thank you, Mr. Attorney General.
We love the free state of Florida. Thanks, Benny. Always a pleasure.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have John James. He is the next governor of Michigan. We're excited about it. He's locked and loaded. He just fresh off of the Donald Trump golden endorsement. Donald Trump endorsement has never meant more, never been more powerful. If you want a golden future, invest with Advantage Gold. Invest in something that is real, something that stands the test of time, and something that certainly is worth more than the paper, potentially, or just the digital ones and zeros in your bank account. All wealthy and successful families invest in physical assets, land, paintings. I can't afford any of those things, but you can afford gold, and you can buy gold today. Nation states are doing it, billionaires are doing it. I trust Advantage Gold. They're the top-rated precious metals company. Text Benny to 85545 right now. That's BENNY to 85545 right now. No cost, no obligation, and no pressure. Check your allocation and get help taking control with Advantage Gold. Ladies and gentlemen, the man with the golden ticket and endorsement to be the next governor of the state of Michigan, John James, joins us live now. Welcome back to the program. What an exciting time and very interesting time for the Midwest. It seems to be like there's a lot. It seems like there's a lot of people that are like, "What? The Bears are leaving Chicago? Like this is like how collapsed? How collapsed have things? How collapsed have things become? We can't let these guys have an inch." And maybe we need to restore like the Midwest values, and that's where John James comes in with the brand new Trump endorsement. Congratulations, John.
Thanks so much. Appreciate you having me back on. Really excited for what the future holds for the state of Michigan and for our great republic.
Okay, just real quickly, like the Bears are leaving Chicago?
No, the Bears are being forced out of Chicago because of terrible policies in Illinois, just like the population of the state of Michigan is being forced out by the failed Marxist policies of Gretchen Whitmer. You just have the Attorney General on in Florida. It takes common sense, it takes consequences to get back on track. We don't have to imagine what right looks like. We just have to remember, get back to the fundamentals, get back to the basics. And I'm excited to bring my combat military experience, my business experience, and my support of President Trump to bear to make Michigan great again.
President Trump talked about that yesterday in his endorsement of you. How did that go? Did you call him on the phone?
No, the president called me. President has been in my corner for the better part of a decade, and I've been in his. The president and I have been through many battles before, and we're going to come back on top. Michigan is a state that has been failed by the leftist, liberal extremists who believe that men can become women. We cannot. They believe that open borders are compassionate. They are not. They believe that letting criminals back on our street to terrorize our people and to leave our law enforcement demoralized is the right answer. It is not. We're going to get back to common sense and consequences. Faith in family, God and country, service before self is what Michigan is calling for, is what Michigan deserves, and is what I'm going to bring.
It seems like Michigan could potentially go through a renaissance. It was amazing. We were in Detroit not too long ago, and I kind of bought into the lie that like everything is collapsing there. And actually, it seems like the sturdy Michigan and Michigander steel and might and build, and renaissance is happening in that city. And everyone who goes to Detroit says the same thing, that like the infrastructure is so rich in Michigan and could really be something incredible again if you guys got better leadership. How are you going to revitalize manufacturing in your state?
Yeah, when you venture outside of the city of Detroit and go to the neighborhoods where people have been suffering under Democrat regimes, not just for the past 7, but for the better part of the past 17 years of failed Democrat leadership that have left Michiganders and disproportionately African Americans behind. You can look no further than your closest inner city to see where Democrat lies have cratered the populations, the families of people who desperately need hope. And so we are going to come in there. We're going to do what Republicans have always done. The Republican Party is a party of emancipation. But when we march down to the South to free men from bondage, to hold this republic together under Lincoln's regime, we can do the same thing now under President Trump and my leadership in the state of Michigan. To march into some of these inner cities, to march into some of these rural areas, and bring a message of hope and a message of prosperity, being able to focus on the fundamentals and things that actually work, focusing on schools and economic opportunity, focusing on public safety, restoring government trust, and doing things that it takes to make sure that we can bring renewed prosperity, to save men from bondage in our time, in our area, and make sure that we restore our republic now. The lie that Marxism wins, that socialism wins, has begun to take hold because Republicans aren't standing up as courageous conservatives to make sure we take that message of good news as what's possible forward to young people and folks who haven't heard it. I'm excited to take this good news to every corner of the state of Michigan, and we can once again have a state where we can revitalize, reclaim, and restore our destiny.
You know, Congressman, there's like a, we were just talking about it with Tommy Tuberville. People don't trust when they see their election systems get broken and they see fraud, open fraud. You know, people tend to get demoralized, and we've been following the election fraud that's been going on in Hamtramck, and how this majority Muslim township, which I think is the first in the country that is a majority Muslim and led entirely by Muslims, how every single member of the city council is now under investigation for voter fraud. And it's not even alleged, it's all on camera. Like, they just set up a camera and caught them doing it, like stuffing the ballot boxes. How are you going to end that? How are you going to fix that?
Well, they're brazen here, and the first thing we're going to do is we're going to beat Johnson Benson, and we're going to take a page out of the president's book. We're going to make it too big to rig. We're going to swamp the vote. We're going to make sure we get every conservative, every Republican out there who will fight for our public out for the ballot box. Because this is it, guys. This is for all the marbles. This is our Alamo. This is our time. Jocelyn Benson right now is our current Secretary of State. She's literally running for governor the same election as she's for the election process to defeat me and President Trump. Well, it's not going to work. Right now, we've already identified at least 14 illegals who voted in our election and hundreds who are on jury duty rolls just in one county. by making sure that we hold the government accountable and doing things like Florida is doing with having a police force that actually goes after these fraudsters. These are the types of things that will restore trust in our elections, restore trust in our government that has woefully been squandered in the state of Michigan. We haven't forgotten about COVID. I have a clear initiative that's going to bring restitution to folks in the state of Michigan who are totally screwed by Gretchen Whitmer and Jocelyn Benson and their terrible COVID initiatives. We are not going back. We will restore the rights to the people where they belong, and we are going to earn the trust back of Michiganders. But in the meantime, we need to swamp the vote, we need to make our voice heard, and we need to make sure that nobody can take our rights away now or in the future.
Exactly. I'm so glad that you brought that up. Maybe that's like a good question for, concluding the interview, which is, what's the remedy here? Steve Hilton's on constantly talking about how you have to investigate the fraud in California in order for it to stop. And there's been fraud in Michigan. I mean, I think it's a human rights violation what your governor did while she was out at her lake house, right? Isn't that the story? Her and her husband were out boating and fishing and having a great time, while she locked down the rest of the state and destroyed everyone's business, destroyed everyone's lives.
The solution is consequences. Right to jail, right away. We're not just going to be investigating. We're going to be bringing about consequences and convictions for those who are found guilty. We're going to make sure that we restore the faith and trust in government, and we are going to push the power and the resources back to the people it belongs. Our rights are endowed to us by our Creator. They must be guaranteed by the government. Local control is an extension of our rights. And so making sure that people can trust their elections in this republic that uses the democratic process to elect our leaders, we will be restoring faith by making sure that we are transparent, we are ethical, and we hold those who've broken our trust accountable to the fullest extent of the law.
That would be very refreshing for the state of Michigan. There's so many good things going on in your state. It's such a beautiful state. It's so evil what's happened. Actually, when you see the architecture throughout Detroit, it's like one of the most beautiful cities ever built.
Yeah.
And for it to just be left to rot and smolder is a crime. I mean, it's a crime against art. It's a crime against our forefathers who built this place, and we should maintain it. So, John James, everybody needs to vote for John James. Obviously, he's the man. He's Trump endorsed, and he's going to do it. Anything that we can do to help, John, let us know. Follow John James right here. He's got hundreds of thousands of followers. He's got 250,000 followers and a rising star in the Republican Party. Godspeed, sir.
Thank you. God bless.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, exciting little round of interviews there. That was efficient ALX. That was fun, right? Okay. Efficient and fun could be you if you used Rumble Wallets. An efficient way to tip your favorite creators. An efficient way to engage in commerce on the World Wide Web. That makes for faster payments, more control, fewer middlemen. That's where things are going, ladies and gentlemen. And it's easier than you think. Rumble is pioneering new and very constitutional technologies that protect free speech and protect your privacy. Rumble Wallet, you can buy Bitcoin, hold dollar-backed stablecoins, own digital gold, backed by real gold, all in one place. Set up is simple. Just go ahead and scan the QR code right there, and you can click the link in the description if you prefer to do that. Download Rumble Wallet today, set it up, just tap buy, and you're in the game. Take control of your money and get started with Rumble Wallet today. All right, ladies and gentlemen, very interesting. Deep state purge going on inside. This is in the title, so I feel like I have to cover it. Deep state purge going on at DNI, Tulsi Gabbard's old office. Trump's new spy chief seeks to fire hundreds inside of the national intelligence apparatus, which oversees the spy agencies of America. Bill Pulte, somebody that we know well on this show, kicked off a deep state purge. Hundreds of jobs are on the line. Pulte arrived at his new role early on Thursday. Wasted no time as a temporary director is looking to cut hundreds of jobs in the office of the director of national intelligence. Sources told CNN this very first day on the job. Pulte asked for a list of every single current employee in the office, and then the move will see the acting director access whether they should be fired or not. The outlet reported the deep state firings have begun one source told the outlet. Yo, let's go ahead and watch.
The acting director of national intelligence had promised to make hundreds of cuts, and this morning sources tell us those firings are now underway. Now, it is not clear how many jobs are going to be affected, but sources say the National Counterterrorism Center is likely to be hit hard. Pulte, who just took over the role last week, today's actually his second full day on the job, is a Trump loyalist with zero intelligence experience. But the president has made clear he wants to slash jobs at the agency, and Trump says he thinks Pulte is actually better able to make these cuts because he's in the role temporarily. Trump saying he's less shackled to do this. Now, Democrats and many Republicans have strongly opposed Pulte being in this role, even for the short term. They've tried to prevent this. All of this and these cuts are sure to be a topic of conversation tomorrow with Senate Republicans, Michael.
If you're just a movie
Senate
person,
Republicans. Hey, Alex, I want the polymarker on the
there you go.
presidential.
And then they run in the reflecting pool, and everyone's so happy that they see each other. She dies of AIDS. Well,
Because there's been a lot of fake news out there.
What are you going to do?
That what Trump's doing is horribly unpopular.
Anyway, they cleaned up the reflecting pool,
Destroys
and now
career.
somehow the Democrats died back because, as you know, one of
actually enormous amounts of
one of the main symptoms, perhaps the all-encompassing
by a wide margin,
actually, is that if Trump does something, you automatically have to take the reverse position. So Caroline Leavitt, White House spokeswoman, who, as you know, gave birth, so she was out for a little bit. She went on Hannity last night and explained that several Democrats have now been arrested for vandalizing the now cleaned up pool.
Caroline, any more details on the 5 people that have been arrested regarding vandalism here?
The vandalism is very real, despite what Tim Walz wants to say. It's an imaginary problem. No, it is not. It's a very real problem. In fact, I spoke with the National Park Service just before joining the show. They now have 17 police reports that have been filed in just the matter of a few days. There's actually been 6 arrests at the reflecting pool, where again, these deranged individuals, many of them long...
Light yellow is Tucker Carlson polling now at 7%. Is he going to run for president? I don't know. My instinct is that yes, that he's going to run for president. My instinct is that.
But still to be discussed.
Maybe I'll try and form a
no
third party
commitment there. That's, remember what Trump has said.
Massey,
that's no American money. That's Arab.
Disaffected or not, you already have Ilhan Omar talking about joining forces with Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Which
Marjorie
means
Taylor Greene
Kuwait, Bahrain,
with somebody who's under investigation for terrorism in her office, code pink ladies.
UAE and Saudi Arabia, but principally Saudi
I don't know how it's all
Arabia, UAE and Qatar are paying reparations for development funding in Iran.
To not vote. Podcasters should tell you
that
to don't
could
be
be
involved.
talked about for the next 100 years,
you on the Republican Party.
unless
all we
there's
have.
a clear agreement the money
This is
goes
what we have.
on the table
I
without
think the major problem with a
without
lot of
Jared
people
Kushner taking his commission or Donald
they don't have
Trump's
children
bribe.
under roof.
So,
Maybe they've been parents before.
I'm glad to hear from you that
And there's something
Prime
so
Minister Arachi has
about how
clarified
a
about
child
the
that's completely
IAEA
helpless
inspectors will also be clarified on the issue
see the
of
effect
if we don't
their
have
lives could have
a
if society
holistic
collapsed.
toll, what do we have
Like the innocence
for
and fragility of like
reparations
these little
for Iran?
children, and how
And finally, there's no
natural
commitment here
instinct that you'll
that
just
the US
do anything
will
to protect
withdraw it from its bases in the Middle East, especially from the Gulf. This is a fundamental part, isn't it?
And
of
so
Iran's
when
future
various people in the
security
podcast
from
circles tell
permanent
you
war
that they
from the American
preferred
and
Kamala Harris to
Israeli
be president,
side. If the US is
what are you talking about?
able to rebuild its radar network,
not only
improve
but
its
an
radar
acceleration of the open
network,
borders.
if the Arab states, the
So like 100 million sparkle
fund all
sprinkles
that, if US forces stay in their
rolling over us,
bases,
every single one of them runs a fake daycare
what has
that gets
been
millions of dollars
achieved
from the
here?
federal taxpayer.
The US has not been driven
You would have
out of
preferred
the region.
Kamala
In fact,
starting probably
the
not
Arab
just the
side
Iraq war,
of
but
the
like
region,
15 other
fearing
wars.
Iran even more than it
war
did
over some
before,
island you've never heard of, or whatever.
is likely the US side
You would have preferred
to
that.
buy
I think you
more
would have
and
gotten more
more
with Kamala
US
Harris.
protection. So
And I'm not
these
saying
are all,
like
as I
that.
said,
I like the Iran war. I
schemes
don't.
of
I mean,
continuing to talk without
I don't want
the
it to continue, and I
appearance
want it to
of a
end.
significant achievement, concessions to
inside
Iran's
the party without burning down the
conditions.
entire tent.
They may play very well politically
But to be like
at home
a single
in the
issue
US.
voter is
The US voters are doubtful. But Mr. Arachi's going to have to do a lot more explanation
like that
in Iran of what he's given away and what he's
Can you
gained.
say that it would be better to have
John,
not have President
right
Trump in office
after,
right now, and instead,
you know, the
have
Iranian delegation
tyranny
arrived in Iran.
sprinkle
They
snookmen.
went to Oman. They had a
and
meeting.
Kamala Harris
And right
riding on
now,
a
just
toboggan
moments ago, we
together
learned that there is a new
through the
statement
federal
on the part of the
judiciary
Iranians
and
Omani government in which they
crippling
insist
our
they
nation demographically.
emphasize that the new mechanism in
Flinging
the Strait
open
of Hormuz
the doors to every
would
third
be
world nation.
established
Did you know
based
something
on
like
a new system of
25% of
peace
Haiti
system
lives
administration
in America?
Yes.
they call it
25%
itself.
of everyone who
But
considers
it's
themselves
going to
a
happen.
nation
It's
lives in
confirmed
America
that the
now.
newest statement is out right now.
We brought
think
Haiti to America. We did the same thing
The
with
Strait of
Somalia.
Hormuz is the
We've
most
brought
important point in the whole
filthy,
communication that what's going on.
dysfunctional,
Iran,
third world nations
two
into
sides
your
have
neighborhood,
defined a new
and now they're our
Seems
dependents
that
that we have to pay their welfare forever.
Two sides
Studies
agreed
prove
on
that
the-
even after
the
being
new
here 10
system.
years,
Yes.
Somalians are
And
still on welfare
On the
at
other
rates like
hand, you look at
87%.
JD Vance. You said how important is 2028
You're telling us
for JD Vance.
That
Yes.
you wanted to
Because he's
continue that process,
basically
continue the
doing
mutilation
everything to improve his position. Looking
children?
at what he
Continue
has done in the
DEI?
last 4 days, for example. He was
that you
on
think Kamala
multiple
Harris should have
podcasts
been
in
in
the
charge
United
of America
States
250?
to communicate to the
So that
base,
some, like,
those
fat
people who
lesbian
voted for Donald
could sit
Trump,
there and
his
give some land
Republican MAGA
acknowledgement?
base, basically
Yes.
to bring all of them
On some
together,
rainbow stage? Like, that's what America, that's what the America 250 celebration would have been.
point they were before the war
And
started.
then they would have, I don't know,
But what's going on? You mentioned that American people don't care
forced a
about
bunch of
what's
white
going
people,
on in the
a
Middle
bunch of
East,
white
but
liberals to
as
kneel
you
and ask
rightly
for
pointed out,
absolution.
the Strait of
BLM,
Hormuz
like that would have been
hitting
like the America
economy
250
of the
celebration.
United
That's
States,
what it
pressure
would have
on
melted
Donald
down the Statue of
Trump.
Liberty.
How do you see the way that the
Right.
Strait of Hormuz
Made like
has
a-
been used by Iranians to put pressure on the United States when it
George
comes to
Floyd
the case of
memorial.
Lebanon?
It would have been
And
a
how
nightmare.
far can
And it wouldn't have been,
they
would have
go?
been, like,
Because today I talked with
please.
Professor Marandi.
We get UFC
he said
at the
in
White House.
Israel, because Israel is
We get the
somehow
Iran
attacking
peace deal.
Lebanese
Yeah.
people.
we get Venezuela.
We're
about to
firing
get-
is going on somehow.
We may
Little
have came to that
fires
after all
and
this.
big fires.
There's a resurgence of
he
right-wing
said
patriotism
basically
throughout
what he said at
South
the
America
end.
because we
He said,
funded
if
USAID.
these things happening again and again, Iran would
I
attack
funded it, just
Israel.
retweeted me.
It's not going to be just about the Strait of Hormuz. The attack
Retweet
is going to happen against Israel.
Here we go.
And how
Let me get this
do
straight.
you think that the
In America,
Trump
a federal judge
administration would be
just
able
ruled
to manage
government is
that
not allowed to check
before
whether
getting to
people are voting.
the war, or maybe the new round
The
of war
single
between
informed
Iran
Biden
and
appointed
Israel?
judge confirmed on a pure party line vote is verifying
There are several
citizenship is
different
illegal.
points that I'd like to address.
On earth checks.
First of all,
Colombia, a non requires ID to vote. We're told
there's
this
a
violates the
question
right. This country
the Iranian
is
side has to settle among each other, and not necessarily in public.
Thank you. A huge shout out to Ryan.
Whether the real deterrent
Like assists
for
reducing, building out conflict.
occupation of Lebanon by Israeli forces
It's like
and
so
further
important.
attacks by Israeli
Stay in the
forces
fight.
against
It's
Hezbollah,
so sick
whether
that the
the
doomers
best
and
way to
blackpillars
deter
are
that
so
is an
sick
Iranian
of people.
attack on
They're trying
Israel
to tear
or an Iranian
It's a
attack,
spiritual battle.
retaliation,
coalition that
let's
won
just say
us.
retaliation
The
on
chance
U.S.
to save our
bases and
Oh,
Arab
great.
bases
They have
accommodating
little
the
kids on
U.S.
I really do believe
in
that
the
it's like
Gulf.
a bit of a
It
superpower
seems to
and
me
a
it's
total
the
lie
latter, not the
that
former.
kids
In other
that
words,
I am
the
that I'm
U.S.
responsible for.
is going to
And that they
control
have that
Israel
an obligation
if
to fight
Israeli
the best
actions
country that
in
possibly can
Lebanon or against Iran
So that's my
threaten
motivation.
the presidential election process,
what is your
midterm
motivation?
elections in
Hopefully it
November,
is to,
and then the presidential
free
succession
of life as you
later.
can,
Remember,
pure and constant
Vance
death,
is
and
running
every
because he
financing
knows
out
a
of
great
that.
deal more than the
Financing.
rest of us do
It's your
about
home,
the capacities
home
of Donald
loans
Trump to
to help
continue
get
to
out
run
of
the
high
government.
interest
He
credit
knows
cards,
about his medical
consolidate
incapacity.
debt,
So
ensure
there's
that
an
you come out of
urgency
an exhausting
on
cycle of
Vance's
debt
part
slavery
to make
and
himself
free
very visible now and
rates
make
that are
himself,
not
as it
usury
were,
rates that are
the
not
father
controllable
of the
as per
deal
the Bible.
here. Yes, he
It's
gives
against
credit to
usury.
the Trump deal, as he calls
And
it,
that
but
is
he's the one who wins, loses,
Fed funds, right?
both at the midterms and then in the succession
Call
race.
American Finance.
So the question is, how does Iran
852-812.
calculate he can
AmericanFinancing.net/Benny will help you get
its
out of debt.
defense and its defense of Lebanon
Okay, that's like my last little
against
treatise
the
on that.
U.S.,
Yeah, I don't
not
know.
against Israel.
I don't know
If I'm
I don't know what
right,
else to say. Like,
basically U.S.
this is
voters
how-
don't care
this is how we
about
win.
whether Israel
that you win
is
you
killing
have to be an adult and you have to
thousands of
log in.
Lebanese
You
or
have to choose a
Palestinians
side.
every
It's
day.
too bad
They
that we have a
do
system that
care,
works the way that it goes.
not if Israel is
But
taking
we have a two-party system here.
incoming
You have to work with
Iranian
one of
attack,
those
but
parties.
if the U.S. is taking it, and if
One of
that's
those parties
expressed
work
by
within it
open,
in order to
close,
facilitate
on the Hormuz Strait. Okay, now, if...
John, sorry
Yeah,
for interrupting you, because we made
what our
a
hope
statement,
is.
you made a statement, I confirmed
Our
that
hope-
the American people don't care about what's going on in the Middle East, which we know many people care about what's going on in Palestine,
A tyrannical
Yes.
ruler
the Palestinian
practices
people.
extortion.
But you particularly are talking about those people who voted for Donald Trump.
Long.
Yes.
That's the
Yes.
point.
Love that first.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes.
And even more clearly, the so-called MAGA constituency wants to see
Steals from the people. That's
toughness
extortion. You
on the
stole
part
from
of the U.S.
someone that belonged to
There's a certain
Brand
degree
rules.
of
Steal from
support
people.
for
Steal the
Jewish
nature of safety.
objectives, Israeli and Zionist objectives
Evil in your life
in
is
the
something
MAGA
in your life will ask. Is
constituency.
something being
That is
stolen?
trying to offset
destroyed.
that with an appeal to the
Actually,
Roman
fruits
Catholic
that you
voters who
see.
way outnumber Jewish voters, but
say
do
the
not
part of something.
outspend
Good
Jewish
fruit
voters
comes
in the support of presidential
Yeah,
races, right?
exactly what
So
good fruit
what
looks like.
Vance has been doing is to
one who
emphasize his Roman
got to
Catholicism. He has a
something
book
honest
about it out.
and upright
He has
and
defended
generous.
the
fact.
Pope Leo the 13th's
Not
positions on what's a moral and just war versus what's
Let us keep playing.
unlawful,
Fight
criminal,
victorious.
internationally objectionable behavior, and genocide is one of those. Though Vance hasn't gone that far yet. What Vance said, and we talked about it last time, is, and he said it in an interview with a Roman Catholic reporter of the New York Times talking about Christianity. He said about Israel, about the Jewish community, and about the Zionist lobby in Washington. You can't kill your way out of every national security problem you have. I'll repeat it. You can't kill your way out of every national security problem you have. Now, that's a very, very blunt warning at all of the Netanyahu coalition, which also faces election soon, let's say by October. And there's only one candidate against that, killing your way out of every problem. It's not Naftali Bennett who's the candidate. Has been with Netanyahu in the past, was a prime minister before Netanyahu. It's Gadi Eisenkot, a former military officer. He's the only candidate running who would, as it were, run against killing as a solution. So that's where Vance is. And you're right to point it out. He has to first win the Republican nominations, and he's got to satisfy the Trump MAGA constituency. He's tough enough, not giving anything away, not giving any money away, redirecting Iranian money when it's released to U.S. farmers, for example. So all of that's going on, yes. But the crucial strategic question here for Iran is if they keep the attrition clock ticking and control of the Hormuz ticking, then the threat of raising domestic prices and U.S. inflation is a powerful weapon in Washington, and it's much more powerful for Vance as a candidate, and it's more powerful than anything the Israel lobby can throw up. So the question then becomes how best for Iran in the present circumstance to demonstrate it has control of the price mechanism for the world's oil.
John, something amazing just happened. Yeah. Yesterday I talked with Elijah Magnier.
Yes.
Yeah. he said, we were talking about the case of Lebanon and how Iran is pushing for total withdrawal from Lebanon,
Yes.
Israeli withdrawal from Lebanon. And when
Yes.
we went out of, and he told me behind the scene, and when
Yes.
it wasn't on live, he said, tomorrow listen to what the government in Lebanon will say.
Yes.
They're gonna get credit of what Iran has done with the case of withdrawal of Israeli forces. Right now, just the news came out, and Lebanese President Joseph Aoun called for an end to the Israeli occupation of southern Lebanon, saying the country would accept nothing less than full Israeli withdrawal.
Fine.
This is the first time he's talking this way. After Elijah told me yesterday that he's gonna say the same. It's amazing to watch it.
Well, this is an important development. It's a significant shift now that the president of Lebanon is back from his meetings in Washington, where he didn't say that at all. And tomorrow, if there's a slight balance revision in Washington and in Tel Aviv, that president of Lebanon will shift again. I'm not criticizing Mr. Manier's interpretation. Lebanese politics are as flexible and in flux as everywhere else. But if it becomes clear that total withdrawal of Israeli forces is the combined Arab, not just Lebanese, Arab and Iranian position, then Vance will have to change his. But remember what he said. I'm looking down at my notes to find out what to read you the quotes. But basically, he claimed in his briefing that you showed that Israel has no expectation of retaining southern Lebanon. Well, it isn't true. It's very clear that certainly the Netanyahu bloc have every expectation. But then what Vance did was make it conditional. He said the problem is that Hezbollah threatens Israel, and therefore for Israel to have its security, it must have the southern Lebanon, quotes, buffer zone. So from an American negotiating point of view, it's far from decided and settled that Vance intends to push, that Trump intends to push the total withdrawal of Israel from southern Lebanon. And let's remember what Trump's tweeted. Never mind what the president of Lebanon has just said. It's valuable that he's aligning himself with Hezbollah for a change. That's a change, but it's temporary. Everything in Lebanese politics, like everywhere else, is temporary. Trump has said Hezbollah must stop firing at Israel, right? And if it doesn't, the US, he then said, has military options. And Vance has basically repeated the same point. So what we have then is an important tactical shift in Beirut. Yes, it's good from an anti-empire Iranian point of view. What's not so good is how to enforce that withdrawal of Israel against a significant Israeli majority inside their country facing election. And I don't know what the candidate Eisenkot's about to say on that point. Does he favor withdrawal against Netanyahu? We'll see. But does Vance say, does Trump say, do they say, we want total withdrawal of Israel in order to protect the security of Israel? They haven't said that. They're nowhere near saying that yet. And how then best for Iran to enforce it? Well, we're repeating ourselves. The Strait of Hormuz, the control of the movement of vessels, the safety of vessels which regulate whether the vessels will come in and out, insurance, and all the other issues associated with the opening of the straits. And finally, the release of both Iranian oil and Iranian cash. If the US continues to qualify everything it's just agreed inside the closed doors of the negotiating room, then Iran has to conclude it can't trust anything the Americans say it can reach. It can't make compromises, it can't make deals, it can't exchange at the negotiating table, because the Americans turn around and pitch it in reverse, to the opposite effect. And this is also a problem we'll come to later. For Russia to negotiate with the Trump regime against both Trump and the Europeans, you can't negotiate with them. They make a deal on one meaning, and then they reverse the meaning the minute they're out of the room.
John, it's not fair, but let me force you to somehow speculate on J.D. Vance. The future and the deal. Which one is so important? Putting pressure on Israel and forcing Israel out of Lebanon and getting a deal? Or staying with Israel in the Middle East, in the West Asia, fighting the fight of Israel, the wars of Israel, and losing 2028? Which one, in your opinion, which way is more possible, more likely for J.D. Vance?
Well, speaking as a once upon a time White House staff person who's fairly familiar with political campaigns, but a long time ago, the president, you have to understand that presidential candidates, and I've said it before, are engineered robots. Engineered robots. The engineering that drives them is a combination of calculation about votes and money. Well, how to attract votes, how to keep the money to buy the votes. That's how they must think. It's as predictable as a military officer's use of weapons. Okay. Now, what Vance has to do is to gather the non-Jewish, call it the Christian vote, on which he's basing his current campaign for the nomination, without so antagonizing Jewish voters. But it basically represents a calculation that if he can capture the Republican nomination, he will win the election, because the Democrats are too divided.
Those of us that were good friends with Tucker, and that doesn't. Those of us that were friends with Charlie, and that doesn't include you, Tucker Carlson.
So the Republicans understand that Trump or Vance or Rubio, another
that is what you don't know. You were not friends with him.
We
You're
can
a liar.
beat anybody the Democrats throw up.
I didn't even realize. Thanks for pointing that out.
So that from Vance's calculation, the first and fundamental thing is to capture the Republican nomination. Hold MAGA first.
That is so funny. That is so funny. I did a whole episode. I recorded an episode yesterday about this entire thing she's talking about. And
Israel first Christians and Jewish money to some extent, and a range of other views we don't need to get into.
And he calls Tucker a liar. You know,
Go
she gets into the whole thing
Israel
about him being so crazy that he would do that. And like I said in the video I recorded yesterday, he didn't even call Tucker.
It's easier for him to say to MAGA,
email him,
Netanyahu
message him,
is
and say, hey
the
man,
cause
just so you
of
know,
your problem. We can be tough
when you
on
do this,
Arabs,
it's really,
tough
really,
on Iran.
really a problem for us.
We can
So
be
if you could
militarily
just,
victorious. These are
talk
all the
this out.
things that Trump feeds
He
to
didn't
his
even do that.
constituents.
He just went straight to attacking.
But we can
He didn't even
hit at
consider
Netanyahu,
calling
Smotrich, Ben-Gvir,
Didn't
his
even
other
consider
ministers. So
after
he
Tucker
can
said all of
pitch,
those
I'm
good
not
things,
against
all
Israel,
those good
I'm
things
not
that we
against
all looked at and
Jews,
said,
I'm not
it's
against the
gross that
Zionist
Tucker's
lobby,
talking
I'm
about
against
this
Netanyahu.
with Blake.
He can
Exactly
do that.
gross.
And Trump is
We all were
threatened
like, this is
that
crazy.
much
Why is
too.
Tucker talking like this with Blake?
So that's his
Why
first
is
calculation.
why is
Second
he
calculation
like this with Blake?
is
Why is he
to
saying
hold
Blake's a good
Republican
person, this and that?
voters
Because we all felt like it was, you know,
Not real.
disappearance of
Not real at
Black,
all.
Asian,
And that's the big reason why Kansas State told you
voters
so.
voted for Trump.
He's been very nice
who
to
are
these people.
extremely concerned
Very,
about
very nice.
inflation, affordability of healthcare, all the domestic
Extremely
issues.
nice.
He's got to
Stayed out
hold
of
them.
it.
And he holds
And
them
I
by
hope
emphasizing the
that
domestic
from Blake
issues.
attacking him,
and essentially,
he decides to
he
just go all
needs
out.
the clock.
I hope that
He
sparks
doesn't
him considering to talk to Baron
want
Coleman.
the talks
We're having
to end.
Candace
He
on
wants
again
the
to talk
Ukrainians
about it.
continuing
Something.
them, right?
Something.
So if Iran doesn't put pressure
in the front
on the
in this
hormones
circumstance
and
lets us
then
know
on
it's
the oil
Charlie
price,
Kirk. You
then
weren't one
on
of his
inflation
best friends.
in the US,
You're like an annoying person that
Vance
somehow
can
got into his
calculate
podcast. Nobody
he
really
can
knows how.
hold his
Actually,
own
I'd like to know
with
how.
Republicans
Oh,
and the
I know. I was
minorities
helping him with his
inside the
points.
Republican
Said Charlie
Party
then.
or
After I
inside the
left, he must
voter
have gotten
base.
really bad.
Now what will happen then
Everyone was helping
in
him.
November 3?
Rabbis,
Because that will
pastors,
help
priests,
confirm the
wives,
calculation.
everybody was helping Charlie Kirk
You've
with
asked
that
me
debate.
to
It was like
make
10th
fair.
year of debating
I
on
think
college
he
campuses.
calculates,
Those
and
kids
you
must
can
have
see the way the
really gotten
Republican
wise or
pollsters
something.
work for Trump.
He was terrified.
The Fabrizio
Excited the night
company
before.
and others
Thought he was going to die, but
calculate.
also very
They're
excited
not
before.
going to lose the Senate.
Gigi up
They
or something.
will lose seats,
Not
but they
going on
may
that.
end
He's
up in the
terrified.
Senate with
Texting
something
security,
like 51
they're going to
to
kill me
49.
after a day of
The
arguing with
Democrats will
Zionists.
gain, yes,
But he's talking about trans
but the
people, and he was really
Republicans
excited the
won't
next
lose
day.
control of the Senate.
None of it makes
One.
sense.
Two, the
Anyway,
Democrats
countering
will
Blake, obviously,
most
the fact that
likely
the exact
gain a
opposite was said.
narrow
Blake
majority
was there
in the House
on
of
Charlie's show after
Representatives.
he died by Andrew
Maybe,
Cole. Take a listen.
maybe up to 20
really want people to
new
understand,
seats the
Tucker.
Republicans will
You
lose.
and Charlie had
That's
such a unique and special
the
bond and
majorities
Just
control in both houses are so narrow.
special
A
bond.
White House
Just
will
so
always
for anybody who did watch
can
the
rule
recorded
with narrow
episodes the other
majorities
day, I know
against
there's
you.
some overlap here,
You
and
can buy them
like
off.
you already
And that's
saw
what
this, but
Vance will
you know,
think.
live stream
There is-
audience,
it's
a little
very
different than pre-recorded
important,
audience. I do
however,
apologize for that,
he
but we
doesn't
do have to go through it.
lose
It was a deep
his
friendship.
Christian
You both
base, and he can
had
see
each other's
there's
back
no
in an incredible
my
way.
back.
You
Say
had his back too.
abandonment
I know
of
those
the
stories as well.
Republican Party.
Yeah, and
by
I
the
promise I won't get
minorities
into any
is
of that, but I
currently
will, and I'm not going to,
He
but I will
must
say,
get
because I love
recovered women's votes versus men's.
love for Jesus,
On the Catholic issue of abortion, he loses women's
I will
votes
just say
in the
this,
United States.
that
He
whenever I
must
would come
recover
and
those.
do a gig
So
for you guys,
his
it was a lot that
calculation,
really
that's a
enjoyed
good
it. You were
question,
so kind
is
to invite me to
first,
defend my views.
I've got to
But I
hold
was
my
always,
base
the only person I
constituency.
did this
I've
with,
got to
I
prevent
would always
desertion
say,
from
hey,
the
you know, let's like
Republican
meet in my
Party.
hotel room.
And let's see how we go
have a
on
meal,
November
like
3.
I loved talking to
If
him,
it turns out
and it
the
wasn't
way
to
I've
catch
just
up on everything that's
suggested,
going on in the political
narrow
world. Always bring
majority
it back to God.
Democrat control
Every
of the
single
House,
time. And if it
narrow
showed up,
Republican
no one
control of the Senate.
Let's-
In Trump's
Oh, yeah,
safe
I
from
really love God.
impeachment, there won't be a majority for that.
You'd be talking about
And
that.
it's
You would
safe
come to
from being
Phoenix,
removed
you would
by
reach out to, and it's
medical
like
disability.
so many memories of
He's
Charlie
safe
being like, I
from
can't, I gotta
So,
have dinner. Who are you doing dinner
between
with? Oh, Tucker's in town. I gotta meet up with
and the Republican Party
How does Blake?
convention
How does Blake?
in 2028.
How does he deal with that?
What's
Like
Vance's
he's clearly
fundamental
making
strategy
something up
here?
when he says
Attrition,
you
war
know,
of attrition
you didn't-
against
you
Iran.
didn't have a
He's got to
relationship with
reverse
her.
the
You're
attrition
lying.
clock that
Like,
Iran has been
how does
using
he deal with
against
that
him.
and then see this?
Keep talking,
You know,
endlessly,
and then
keep
see
talking.
that
That's
Andrew
what
said this.
he said in
He
Switzerland.
was there in
That's
the
what he
room.
means
It's not even
now.
see Andrew said this. He's in the room.
John,
Hearing
moments
Andrew
ago,
say this.
Russian
How
President
does
Vladimir
he
Putin said
handle
Russia
this?
is ready
It's
for
really
peace
weird.
negotiations with Ukraine
Really,
based
really
on
weird.
the
And again,
agreement.
and I may have said this before, but it shows that there's something else at
He
play
added
in my mind.
everything.
It shows that there's
Everything
something else at play
does
other than
is
just
an
Blake.
attempt
You know,
to gain
people are
an
just like,
advantage
Blake's a nerd, and
itself
this and
at
that.
the start
I don't think
of
it's
peace
just that.
negotiations. Reality
I think
on the battlefield
that there
is
is
completely different.
some
Our
kind of
units,
marching orders.
yeah, our units
If Blake
are
runs his own
moving
social media, I
forward
don't even know.
every day.
It seems like there's some
That's
kind of
a
marching
little bit
orders
looking
where
at
he
the
has to
battleground
say
in
this thing.
Ukraine.
He
What is
has
your
to go
understanding and
at
position
Tucker.
of the Russian president?
Because in his mind, he must be like,
There's nothing
well,
new in
you
what
know,
President
Tucker
Putin
did
said.
have
just said.
Blake knows. The same way Andrew's saying it. It's not like Andrew's saying it. This is his first time hearing about it. If Blake was so close to Charlie, then Blake knows that they had a friendship. He knows that Andrew said it. He was there in the room. And then on top of that, when Tucker pushes against him, the first thing he does is just attack Tucker. He doesn't call him, nothing. It's because there's some kind of marching order in place. And it makes, I wouldn't even say it makes them look guilty.
but it
Kherson and
makes
Zaporozhye regions,
what we think happened to Charlie
significant
seem way more
areas in
plausible.
those regions which
Every
are
time they do
legally
something like this.
are part of the Russian Federation
It's so out of
now,
character
are
for
not
a person.
under Russian control. They're under
Not even
Ukrainian
just
control.
not even just
The problem
like,
remains
so out of character
that there
for a
is an
person
escalation on
to
the
do
other
something
side. The Ukrainian
for a
drone
person
war
to be like,
has escalated. We've talked
not
about
calling
this
the
before.
person who's my friend, I'm not calling him, I'm
It's
not
having
checking, I'm
significant
just gonna attack him
publicity
and call him a
effects,
liar
PR
right now.
effects,
It's just not what
propaganda effects,
so
and
many
it's
things that
having
3 Point does
significant psychological
when they're addressing or
economic
trying to
effects
address
on
or trying
Russia.
to dispel things.
As they
It's
go
just
to the
not
polls
like a
on September 18 to 20. So what we have to understand,
they act like something
put it
else.
in
Somebody
the
said
same
that he's a creature.
political realism terms I've applied to the US,
Well, you
to
might be.
Israel,
You might
and to
be,
Iran.
you know.
Apply the same
Creature of good,
forms of
controlled
calculation and interpretation to Russia. First, President Putin speaks contradictory ways out of his mouth at the same time. All good politicians do that in the belief that they can balance different constituencies and hold the majority. That's the most important point. So he can say one thing today and another thing tomorrow, which means slightly different things. What is he really saying about the negotiations? And this is a crucial question, particularly bitter, fierce debate in Moscow right now.
Okay, Sawface,
On the one hand,
you're now allowing to
Putin
kind of
is going
edge
to say,
into and pretend
I
that he was her
trust
advisor.
Trump.
He came to me for
He's
advice about the
ever
vote,
so
right?
nice
He
in
was
wishing
upset
Trump
about Tucker
happy
Carlson and
birthday.
confided into
He does
Laura
everything
Loomer.
possible to ingratiate
Are you guys
and
out of your
appease
minds?
Trump.
How do you
Why?
live with yourselves? How do you do it? I want to understand it.
Strategy
How do you guys wake up in the morning and
was
look
being
yourselves
called
in the
the
mirror,
Anchorage form
knowing that you
of
didn't just
that
betray
state.
Charlie, you betrayed
Understand
every single day, every
says he
single
negotiated
moment,
with
and the
Trump
entire
in
world
Anchorage, Alaska,
knows it.
in August
Every
a
time
year ago.
Blake Neff
The
opens
key
his mouth,
element
a
of that
conspiracy
is
theorist gets his
Trump
wings.
is offering a U.S.
That's
guarantee
just
for
something she came
Russia's
up with off the
security
top of her head. Because if so,
Europe,
that's
not
crazy.
just the
That's wild.
Ukrainian battlefield.
It's wild if she just came up with
Now,
that off the top
in
of
the
her head.
last few hours, President Putin has authorized
That's a very interesting thing to say.
President of the U.S. to say the Anchorage formula isn't working anymore.
Someone
We
had
can't
to have
rely
written
on
that
the
down.
United States.
They had to have
Trump
thought of that
to
before.
deliver
They had to have thought
such a
of that before.
security
They cannot
guarantee.
just
What's
be
left
something
out
that she just said
remains to be
randomly.
decided.
If so, I mean, huge props.
Putin
Huge props to her.
line,
That's a wild thing to say.
Dmitry Peskov, the spokesman,
An
Yuri
absolute
Dmitriev,
fact.
the special
People
negotiator
are
with the
despicable.
Americans,
Oh, Charlie Anderson
the
speaks in
domestic policy
2019. You
finance
liars.
minister and the central bank governor.
Sending people out to
They
fight
all
kids,
want
just
a
trying to
shorter
just, I
war,
can't even
and
imagine
they want
having passed away and watching my worst
improved
enemies be
relations
given
with the
my
United
legacy
States.
by my own wife,
They were never
by
in
my
favor of
own
war to begin
wife, yielding the stage to Ben Shapiro, like we were going to allow that. We're not going to allow it. I said from the very beginning of this entire thing, I want war with all of you, and I'm so glad that I get here. We'll be right back after the break.
Services all think that the U.S. and Europe are combining to make a permanent war against Russia. And if the Ukrainian battlefield
I wanted to just show the Rob Boy thing because this is actually Alex Page, and
they will continue on other fronts. So the problem with Istanbul, and this is you just pointed out,
he's the one that found the Rob
referred to
Boy thing.
Istanbul.
In a way, he's responsible for all
back in
lots of
2022 had no restrictions on drone
That is Ali's fault.
None at
Watching
all.
Ali.
So the problem
kind of
of
upset
security for Russia in Europe becomes not only Ukraine as a platform for drone
Let's
warfare
keep going here.
and the escalation of
yeah,
drone
Candace
warfare
addressing
from
it. Let's
Ukraine
move on to
into
the
Russia
really quick.
against Crimea,
There is a beef.
against
I could
the
just
roads and
stay
railroads
on
and
this
bus
the rest of the show. There
routes
is
and
a
schools
little bit of beef
of the new Russian regions. The problem is not
Sawface, as Candace now calls it.
extension of
Sawface.
drone warfare.
I mean,
to
so
Germany,
petty,
which builds
so not clever,
firing
so
in
hilarious
Russia.
at the same time, you know?
The UK,
Just
which does the
Sawface. Hey, I'm
same.
gonna call you Sawface.
Latvia, which does the same.
Just
and
crazy.
so on and so
Just
forth.
crazy.
The entire NATO plan has become a platform
Pregnant Candace,
for this
doesn't matter if
form
there's a battle bun,
new
doesn't matter if
warfare
there's a power
calling
pony.
against Russia.
She's
the
going
older
max the whole way through. I like Pregnant Candace a lot.
An immediate test of whether President Putin is committed to a military solution on the Ukraine battle is whether he will receive
so let's start off
Witkoff and Jared Kushner back in the Kremlin to discuss. Now, that's something Maria Shakov has repeatedly said Russia's willing to do. It's ready to receive Witkoff and Kushner back in the Kremlin as soon as they're complete.
I know who you are. I know what my demographics are. I see
now
it,
that's anathema.
35 to 55 years old. I know my demographic. Don't worry about it, guys. I got you.
The faction in Moscow that says Witkoff and Kushner have demonstrated
actually commented on
nothing
place.
They say
Actually
is
post.
either to be believed
That's
on
what
its
she said.
face
She said,
or even
I
on its
warned
they
everyone
are
at the
corrupt.
point about Tucker.
They are
I
liars.
even
They are
warned Tucker.
deceit
I warned Charlie
agents.
Kirk.
And the more they
I was
participate,
upset about it. He invited me to his office 2 weeks before he passed away to
to
talk about the problem of the world, right?
on Iran, the less they should be welcome
then
in Moscow.
he passed away.
What have they
Tucker hijacked
possibly
his
got
memorial
to
and he's
bring
lying, saying
the
that
Kremlin?
Philadelphia is the one that offed
haven't
Charlie
already
in an effort
delivered.
to help Tyler
And
Robinson
if
get off.
what they've delivered to the Anchorage
It's not in an
formula,
effort to help
Russians
Tyler
no
Robinson
longer
get off.
believe
It's
it.
an effort
So,
to immortalize him
the
as
immediate test of whether there's any shift
forever.
in Moscow
That's
is not the advance
not saying
on
that's
the
what
way
happened,
in the
but
West. It's
it makes sense. You want to immortalize someone who's the biggest supporter forever. That just kind of makes sense.
As they are attacked
So
abroad on the high seas. Bear in mind that one of the things that Trump has just gone and
sorry
done
for the
is
person who
not
said
to
63. I can't zoom it in anymore.
oil sales waiver for Russia
This is
is
good
given
as
to
it gets. Sorry for
Iran,
those that are in the
taken
60s.
away from Russia. That's a hostile act. What did Witkoff and
But
Kushner
that's what she had to
about
say.
that? Answer nothing.
Kind of sparked something.
So, what
then
we have to
Then she
face
takes somebody's
is
comment
Russia ready
and says,
to
"Why don't
accept?
you
Is President
fund Tucker's
Putin
points?"
ready to accept this
And then
new reality?
she
which
says
is
in the weeks before
too
Charlie
old.
passed away.
And to deal with the fact Russians now suffer from entropy. Benzene as it's called.
In the construction zone,
Russia.
the speed really is probably the
Inflation.
biggest issue. Average speed
The
is probably close to
psychological anxieties that arise when you go to
literally
sleep
just
at
a
night
plastic
not
hole that
knowing
is separating us from
whether
live traffic.
there'll be an air attack alarm. This is a
One thing I'd
rising
like to ask
anxiety.
the most
Don't
is
underestimate
just to give us a break,
I
slow
feel
down.
it
I want
through
to get home and see my wife and kids
my
tonight.
people who work
Week
with
before he
me.
passed away,
I
she was
feel it
attacking him. She was saying
in all the
very
conversations I have. There is a
same way she talks about
psychological
Tucker,
thing. Not
same
that
way she talks
Russia
about
is
Candace,
losing
the same way
but
she
the
talks
price
about
paid
Megan
is
Kelly.
going up.
Same
and
way.
the Russian army is counted on
Same
to
exact way.
defend the country
Talking about Charlie.
in a new way. But how do you negotiate
So the fact that she kind of
security
tries to
from
position
this
this
form
like
of drone warfare?
Charlie
which is
had
not
me over there.
Zelensky's
Charlie probably had to have me over
It's
there.
a
She's some kind of,
European and American
allegedly,
operation.
maybe, perhaps. She's
And
some
if
kind
that's
of
the case, the first test will be
she's
Witkoff
in
and
rooms
Kushner
where
have
it doesn't
nothing
make any
to
sense
say
for her to be there.
that we don't
It doesn't
already
seem like she
know.
has any expertise.
And they are not acting
Doesn't seem like
in a
she's
way that
very
would
good at
regulate
anything.
and choose
She's not really
drone
good at
warfare.
debate. She's kind of like
If that's the way they are,
Charlie
then well,
thought that she could be a Fed. That's where my mind goes as well. With someone like her, because she doesn't make any sense. If you saw Candace in politics, you'd be like, well, the lady's very fierce.
That's the way I would
good at
read
debate.
current
Presents herself
Moscow
really well.
factional
So you'd be like, okay, this makes sense. You know, if you saw her in a
Thank
room
you
with
so
the
much,
president,
John.
if you saw her in a room with
today.
Charlie, if you saw her on stage, it all kind of makes sense why she's there. As soon as you
we're
hear
in
her
a
speak.
very with the high state of flux in
None
each
of it
the
makes
capitals.
sense. None of it.
And all we can do is ask our audience to appreciate
Says a
that
bunch of stuff about Charlie,
the level
about
of
Charlie's
political
worry,
realism
about certain people were going to
doesn't
take
leave
him
a
down.
great deal
The reason that she's saying that certain people are going to take him down is because these people also had the same
I look forward to
opinion
next
that he
week's
seemed to be growing to
episode.
have
Let's
about
see
Philadelphia.
where we are
That's
next
why
week and to
she was
measure
saying
how
these people are going
differently
to take
it
him
was
down.
from the
It's
weeks
kind of
before.
veiled in a little bit of a threat, in my opinion.
Looking forward to
So
seeing
yes,
you.
leading up to
Please
his death,
go to
Charlie
John-
and his staff were
here
very
is-
worried about the
you see on the
anti-Philadelphia,
screen,
Charlie haters
johnhelmut.net.
ambushing
You
him
can follow
because
John
they
on his
constantly demonized
website.
him for not joining their cause.
Thank you,
It's
John.
very, again, trying to
Thank you
rewrite
again.
history. He was going
you
over
next
to their cause. Maybe not to the full extent of, like, you know, people who, like, follow Nick. Like, like super haters, but he was definitely coming over to the side where him and Candace could have had a very productive conversation. But either way, Candace ended up responding. She said, "Hey Laura, can you share the text messages of Charlie seeking
A direct threat from the President of the United States.
Turning point
If Iran violates the agreement,
he thought you were a total nut job.
what they have
So
to
this
do.
is surprising. He suddenly thought he
The Revolutionary
twice
Guards are
before
demanding
he passed
nuclear
away.
ambiguity.
Had to say there.
Iran is not rushing to give up its most valuable asset, trust.
Everything. So
And
she
right now,
responds to what Candace
from
says.
Gaza to Iran,
She
it seems that
actually
the West is granting terror
She actually says,
from defeat.
she says,
Iran is
Charlie
presenting
invited to his
achievements
office,
from the negotiations.
Tyler,
And today,
Page,
we will
Beck,
bring you
confirm this.
the concession that it claims
If
it
he
received
thought I was a
from
nut
the
job, he
United
wouldn't
States
have
of America.
flown me out and hosted
As part of
at
the
his
United
office.
States-Iran agreement,
Again, I feel like there's
Tehran
certain people,
claims
especially when
that
you're one of these
the
yeah,
entry
locals,
of IAEA
I feel like there's some
inspectors
people you
into
have to do
Iran
this with.
was not approved in the
I think
negotiations.
just like the same way he didn't have a
The United
choice in
States
getting
declares
interviewed
the
by
return of
Benjamin
nuclear
Europe
inspectors.
show.
Iran
He didn't have a
strongly
choice.
denies it.
I think there's certain people you don't
President
have a
Trump
choice.
insists and says that
For whatever
Iran will
reason that
agree
could be. I don't
to
think she's a
broad
mega
weapons
donor. I don't know
monitoring.
who she's connected to.
Iran
It seems like she's
is
connected to the
expected to
president.
receive
And,
$15 billion
a lot of people
from
behind
its
the
frozen
scenes.
funds in the coming days.
She had like Pentagon
And how did
clearance.
Israel lose its freedom of
Very
action
weird
against the
stuff.
Hezbollah terrorist organization in Lebanon?
You know, that's why I don't trust her.
Are the talks in Switzerland officially anchoring
Pentagon
Iran's
approved.
foothold
I don't trust
on
her.
Israel's northern border?
She also says
And
this
also,
person,
a
Marcy
surprising
Maxwell,
message
was
from
present
the
in the
World
building
Cup.
while I was there as well.
Iranian national team
Well,
left a
here's some
mysterious
text,
note.
Charlie. I had
And in
Charlie,
Canada,
though,
a serious shooting incident near a Chabad house in
it's just a
Montreal
fact.
took
He was worried
place.
about the woke.
A Jewish
I
civilian
hate this.
and police officers
It's
were
so
murdered.
stupid.
The
It's
shooter
coined
was
by
eliminated.
Micro
Maria
11.
Pinto
It's
and
coined
his
by
boots on
him.
the ground.
It's such a
We
dumb
bring you the
term.
full truth about
because you're
what's happening in
basically just
Israel,
saying,
and also
you know,
full
I
truth
know
about what's
these
happening in our
people
neighborhood.
World War II bad guys, but I want to call people on
23.
my side
So let's
that have a
begin.
different opinion than
A
I do.
major gap between
I also want to
versions
call
has
them
been revealed
Nazis.
between Washington
So,
and
this is how I
Tehran
do it.
regarding the
It's
results of
such
the
a
last
noise.
talks in Switzerland.
Anyways,
While the
he was
official
planning to
media
do
outlets in
more
Iran
to stop
strongly
the
deny
spread
any agreement
of
and
this
insist on
religion
continuing
in
the policy
America,
of nuclear
and 2 weeks
ambiguity
later he passed away.
in order to prevent a military strike, the American
It's
side
such a
presents
dumb,
a much more
upside
optimistic
down
and hopeful
theory.
picture.
Like,
After
that-
Trump's
like, that's who
deputy
did
J.D.
it.
Vance
That's who did
stated
it.
earlier today
Let me tell you
that
something.
Iran had agreed to
That
allow
particular
IAEA
religion that you're
monitoring
talking
at the nuclear facilities, Tehran
They
quickly
don't
denied
usually
this statement.
shy away from taking
Trump wrote
claim
a
of
short
things.
time ago
I'm
on
just
his
saying.
social media platform
Usually,
that
if they
everyone
did
is well
they
aware
scream
that
about it,
Iran
right?
will agree to the
They will
broad
yell.
weapons
There's certain thing they
monitoring
yell
in
as
order
they're
to
doing it.
guarantee
They want you
long-term
to know
nuclear
that they have
honesty
done this.
into the future as
They
well.
don't do things in secret.
President
They're not
Donald Trump
sneaky about
addressed
it.
the issue
They're like,
and made it
"Don't
clear
worry,
that
I got it.
international
I'm the
pressure
one
is doing its
They
job.
scream
In
at
words,
They wave their
everyone is
hands.
fully aware that
You
Iran
can
will
see it
agree
happening
to
in
broad
Ireland.
weapons monitoring.
In Ireland,
This
some guy
is
did.
in order to
He just
guarantee
stood up,
long-term
covered
nuclear
in blood. He didn't
integrity
care. He was like,
into the
whatever.
future.
It just happened.
This
I think in
statement
the UK.
joins the words
Took off some
of
guy's head.
Vice President
He's like, I don't
J.D.
care.
Vance,
Yeah, I
who claimed
get it.
that the Iranians
There's
had
a
already
thing they
agreed to
scream.
allow
I'm not gonna
inspectors
say it,
from the
but you
International
know what
Atomic
it
Energy
is.
Agency,
They
the
scream that,
IAEA,
and then they do it.
to their sites.
They're not really
In Iran,
secret about
meanwhile,
it. So, like,
they
what she's
continue
saying
to
is
define
nonsense.
these things as complete fake
This is
news.
a text message.
Look,
She ends up showing.
Israel has entered a dangerous process of a
He
slippery
says,
slope
what the
in
F?
Lebanon.
And this is Charlie.
And this is how it
This is
happens,
Charlie saying it to
step
her.
by step.
This is June 22nd.
Until President Trump's
almost
unilateral
today,
decision to
2025.
stop the strikes against
What
Iran,
the F
Israel was
is
free to
Hodge
strike
twins
in Lebanon
issue, like
almost as it saw fit.
And then she says,
From
you know,
Maria Pinto.
anti-Philadelphia, just
this
like Candace.
is your boots on the
Hope
ground
you're done
report.
with them
We
after
bring you the
this.
full truth
Lots
about what's
of
happening in
Philadelphia
Israel
haters.
and about
Candace
this
has
war
gone off
against the
deep end.
Revolutionary Guards in
I
Iran.
hope you see
She's the head of the crumbling
had
axis of
dad.
evil in the Middle East.
The president's
Apparently,
back here.
in other
That's
words,
very
know what
interesting.
Becky
even
said.
though the terror elements have almost
Because
never
attacking
seriously
him.
upheld
Just
the
maybe
agreement
you want
that they
to
signed,
stop.
the West
You want wanted to see, like, hey, I'm on the side of the president, right? Like, you don't have to
yet
come
another
in.
agreement.
Becky.
Because
Becky.
we're talking about
political
June 22nd,
ideology around which the
there was
West
a lot of people
organized
coming
itself
at
in the
him. There's a lot of
21st
people
century.
messaging him.
The concept
A lot of
that
people questioning
diplomacy
him.
and
There's
business,
a lot of people
not
making him
military
feel
victory,
uncomfortable
are the
because of the
solution
things
to
he was
raging
doing on
violence.
these platforms. It's also notice, and I get this from my
currently
friends as
taking
well,
shape.
where we'll be talking about one thing, and then all of a sudden,
access to about
they'll
$50
all
million
of a
from
sudden
funds
start
from Qatar and the
yelling
United Arab Emirates.
about cannabis. I've had this happen so many
In the
times.
coming days,
So many
will be
times.
carried out in stages in exchange for Iran and the
We'll just be talking about something,
they meet
and all of a
the
sudden they'll just be like,
regarding
yeah,
the
you know,
program.
and Candace too, she's just so
and
crazy,
the United
right?
States
Make contact with the
the
road.
Lebanese arena.
Why are we doing this?
The real-time
I don't want to
monitoring
talk about work
mechanism.
with
The
you.
tires are the things on your car that make contact with the road. All together.
I've had this conversation so many times. You have no idea.
The tires are the things on your car that make contact with the
You know
road.
you're going to lose this, right? You know you're going to lose
said
this whole
that
battle.
a monitoring mechanism through CENTCOM has been
And then in
incorporated
regards to
to
him saying
information in real time.
the F is with the Hodge.
Prime Minister of Qatar said that
I have
in
to
the next
say,
stage of this negotiation,
before
Iran and French state, a meeting with Arab
I was asking the
countries
same thing about the
region
Hodge
is expected to
because the
take
Hodge
place.
twins